thought we could start. I did send out some materials early this afternoon. I know it wasn't a lot of time to review it, but we'll be going through those in discussion. So I thought maybe I could just start with the kind of PowerPoint, wanted to guide how the conversation is. If everybody wants to switch gears, we can do that. Like I said, this is more informal. It's more of a workshop. So I will put up, hold on a second, the presentation.
Peggy, you said you sent something out earlier this afternoon.
Yes, there was a PowerPoint slide as well as a document for that from Beta about pavement. Um,
Did am I the only person that didn't seem to get it?
Oh,
Do you
maybe
see
I have it.
something? I see the paving thing. Please see the report below. See that one.
and there was also a PowerPoint presentation attached to that.
Yeah, I had both attachments.
I got
Just
it.
did.
Didn't
As
see it,
did
but I got it.
So
I know
it went
people
to
are
our
busy.
selectmen emails.
So, and I'm trying to get this. Why is this not working? It's not sharing.
Black screen right now. Oh, now you're back.
Oh, you know what? It's like whenever I have at home the second screen open, I have to put this on here. Hold on a second. Just give me 1 second. I will try sharing it again. Um, that's
Yep.
what. Okay, you see that?
Yep.
Okay, let's do this. Okay. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, so I did send this out earlier just so in case you wanted to see it ahead of time. It's just more conversation bullet points. It's not any things you needed to like pre-read necessarily, but so my thought was today was just kind of review some of the outstanding issues that are impacting CIP. We have a number of unknowns. And then wanted to take a deep dive into major roads because we had done that pavement study and we talked about capital infusion, how do we get more kind of into our roads account so we can the next 5 years get more done. So I thought we'd talk about that. Then I'd talk about upcoming projects and including some of the stuff that we talked about at the Board of Selectmen meeting with solar and all that. New projects that are in the CIP, and this is only just for the town. The Board of Ed has done kind of their preliminary capital plan or project submissions for CIP. They're going to be going back and looking at it again because I met with them last week. And what happens is they kind of do theirs in like a silo, not knowing how it's going to impact the overall plan. And then we meet together as our town plan comes together and we try to come up with some balance between the two. So they're looking at their project list again. And then at the end, I thought we could talk a little bit about the funding sources. So if that's good, I don't know, do you want to, since John is going to be joining us, I thought we could do the roads first, after I talk about the unknowns. So basically, just to highlight, we obviously have a number of other things looming now that we've closed these new schools. We have the RFP process that, we're going to be hiring consultants to look at Jeffrey and Memorial Town Hall. Out of that will come some projects for sure in some direction. So we don't know what that's going to be and what the funding requirements are going to be. I know we're also thinking about trying to repurpose some of those academy grants, so that might help with some of that. And then we have academy. We have, we'll be getting the expression of interest outcome next month. And then we have the demolition estimates that we're trying to get a more refined estimate, but that has not been accounted for in terms of the capital budget right now. And then there's also, we had pulled this out of CIP a while back, but the playground is due to be replaced. So the question is, that kind of has to factor into that whole conversation with what we do with Academy. And so that was a number I think we'd has a placeholder for the playground replacement. And the new plan was moving it and putting it next to the building itself because the septic was going there. So we'll have to figure that out somehow. Then we have other demolition. We know we've budgeted for Ryerson as part of the referendum, but we also know we have a shortfall. We are going to have some costs associated with town campus learning. Surf Club, with this master planning process, projects are going to come out of that. We also, and we'll talk more about this, we have Strong Field, which we know is looming out there that we need to replace the turf there. That's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. It's not in CIP. We've been kind of holding it in year 6, so the funding doesn't kind of get messed up. But is that wrapped into a broader surf club plan? Like if we go out to bond for redoing other things at the surf club, do we kind of bundle that as part of that? So that's things that we need to think about. And then the building and grounds relocation kind of is tied into the town garage project, which has started to enter CIP, but we haven't finalized what we want that to be. So these are all kind of looming things that we need to start thinking through and nailing down and making decisions on. So the pavement piece is something we've kind of talked about. It was really the end of last year where we had that study done that gave us a rating for our roads, and we talked about wanting to it's getting more and more expensive to pave, and we want to sustain at least our rating, but if anything, we want to see an improvement. And so right now we're roughly spending about $1.5 million every year on paving, and that's between the CIP bucket, the town aid road bucket, which comes from the state, and then our operating budget. And so, that's kind of what our funding levels is. Beta has come back. They made a recommendation to us through, and that was the report that I sent to you. So I thought maybe John could talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. We took their recommendation and said, they basically were telling us we have to do a $5 million infusion. So we went, that's a big expectation. So we came up with Stacy working with John and just kind of looking at our, we came up with more of a way to phase in more funding into paving that we thought was more palatable. And that would be involving 2 different special appropriations, like $1 million over the next 2 years in each year, keeping the budget pretty much similar, but then also tapping into that paving account has always had this huge balance, which I didn't ever understood why we kept like almost $1 million balance in that paving account. It was almost like a double emergency fund. So one thought was running that down a little bit more. And then that would allow us to jumpstart the paving program and get more done. So with that, I'll let John, I think, is on. Is he here?
I'm here. I'm on.
Okay, great. So John, if you just want to spend a few minutes, on the beta study and what this would mean and, what the recommendation was, that'd be great.
Okay, yep. So the beta study, this is really the last time we did a full scale study was back in 2013, and the road surface rating at that time was 69.9, essentially 70. And so the study was redone last year, and the road's surface rating, as you can see there, it's 71. So it's really only crept up. The overall road conditions in town have crept up very slightly by 1 point. And I still think there's still quite a few roads in town that are in poor condition that need to be improved. So Beta did after doing their road survey of the entire town, they did a 5-year CIP plan, a proposed plan, which their plan kind of jump-started this 5-year plan by initially funding in year 1 $5 million. And the idea with that was to be able to pave some of these, get some of the worst roads in town done. And then in year 2 through 5, the funding level would drop back down to our current level, essentially. And what that would do is by putting the $5 5 million into year one and taking care of some of the worst roads. It would allow the town to manage the roads over the next, years 2 through 5 by more preventative measures and preservation type techniques, and less of the major road type techniques like milling and overlaying and reclamation work. So and what that would do is they actually did a nice graph that I think is in the packet that kind of shows how it would improve over time, and allow the funding to go. So in year one, it would be the funding level or the funding would go towards 65% of that would go towards major rehabilitation and minor rehabilitation type techniques. And then over the remaining 4 years, it would allow the town to move into more of these preventative type maintenance techniques at a lower cost. So it would stretch the dollar and allow us to take care of more roads. And it ends up with their CIP plan. The model tells us that it ends up getting us near there's an RSR of 75. And so Beta they've done analyses like this throughout New England. And apparently the current level of 71 that we have is a slightly above average, according to Beta, from what they see in New England towns. And getting that level up to 75, though it doesn't sound like a lot, is a pretty significant improvement. According to Beta, that's what I'm hearing. That was sort of a target, and a good target to try to get the level up to 75 and then continue to have the roads improve over time, to creep up over time, where we're putting more of our funding into preventative type maintenance and less into full reconstruction type projects. So that's essentially what the plan is that they're proposing. $5 million in year one, and then 1.3 to 1.5 over the next 4 years.
So I think maybe Stacy, if you just want to talk for a second, we kind of stepped back and thought, well, that's kind of a difficult thing to do, just to write a check for $5 million. I don't think there's an appetite to do that. And so the thinking was trying to phase it in a little bit to kind of roughly, so we're not going to be like spot on to what their recommendation is at the 75, but at least it gets us ahead a little bit. Stacy, I don't know if you want to just talk through what you're kind of assuming in the plan right now.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I phased in spending about 3 million in the next 2 years over and above what we normally spend. So that does not include the $1 million that we normally spend in CIP, as well as the 550 out of town aid road in operating budget. So taking that aside, I did 1.5 million additional in years 1 and 2. So that would give us $3 million over our normal spending. And that would require 2 special appropriations over the next 2 years of $1 million each. And then using the balance in the major roads of about $1 million, which brings down the balance to a more reasonable amount because it was building up over the years. So that's where I am right now, unless we want to modify it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal here was not to kill the budget, right? And to find different tools to still get ahead of all this without crushing the budget every year in terms of spending on paving. The other thing I just want to highlight, we also still are part of our plan last year was that we were going to make an infusion of 750 she's still assuming that right now. It was part of the CIP process. I think we held off on it because we wanted to hear back on Beta, what their recommendations were gonna be, so, we still haven't done that appropriation either. And so that kind of is assumed into these balances if we're gonna move forward with this plan. So we would really be needed to do this year a 750. Which we had talked about last year, I think at both boards, and then $1 million next fiscal year, and then $1 million the fiscal year after that, if we were going to follow this plan.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, Peggy, I forgot about that 750 is assumed that we will do that. It was in the plan. It went through the whole CIP process to both boards. And it's also been in our fund balance worksheet that we share with the Board of Finance every month. So yes, I did assume that 750 will happen.
So I have two big questions, I think. First is, if we take Stacy's plan for blunting some of the upfront impact of this, what does that do to the curve that Beta did? And where does the number end up? And then what does a 74 score road look like? And what does a 70 score road look like? And what is the mix in the town? In other words, it would, if we're going to talk about this with taxpayers, we can say, look, 50% of the roads are going to look like Mungertown Road, and 25% of the roads are going to look like Green Hill, and give some context to what all of this scoring is. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, so a 70, there's a range of obviously there's a range of ratings, RSRs, from the poorest to the best. So I don't recall off the hand, the lowest is down in the 40s for essentially a failing road, all the way up to 99, 100, and so a 70 is it's a road that is forming some cracks, but it's not in need of paving. If you look at a road that is a 70, you wouldn't say, oh, that needs to be paved. I mean, I know this is very qualitative here, but
well, I think that sorry to interrupt, John, but if you guys look at the document he emailed, there's a great chart on there that shows you where our roads would be. Like, you'd see, you want to be in the green, right? Which is preventative maintenance and routine. You want blue, and a lot more blue and green. So if you look at those two pie charts, and maybe John, I can take this down for a minute, and if you want to
Sure.
put that up, and correct me if I'm wrong. Stop sharing. Why don't you go ahead and put that up? Because I think that's helpful to see. The idea is to shift more and more of the inventory to, because we have some red right now. We have 15% of our roads are major rehabilitation. That's expensive stuff that we have to fix. It's like rebuilding the road, right? So, so if you can pull that chart up.
Yeah, I'm looking. So I need to share my screen here.
Yep.
How do you need to give me permission for that? Oh, I see. Share.
Yeah.
Okay. Just bear with me here a second.
Yeah, it's better to have it open when you share.
Okay, I got you. So
You can just grab it, but
yeah. So there. No, that's not it.
it was that 3-page thing.
Okay. Sure you can. Do you see that now?
Yep.
So this graphic is you can see where we are on the left side to July 2025 in year one. In this and going from the year 25 to 26, this is where that $5 million expenditure would be. You can see that it jumps up quite a bit there, 73.8. And then, and what that does is this, what is it? 65% of the, if you look at the pie chart on the left, is minor rehab and major rehab. And minor rehab's actually a mill and overlay, so it's not that minor. It's repaving the road. Major rehabilitation might be reclamation or full reconstruction. So both of those techniques are intense, costly. Then as you move along through years 2 through 5, you can see that the RSR is creeping up, and by year 5, the amount in major road and major rehab and minor rehab is down to 30% of the fund. And the in the green and blue, which is what we want, routine or preventative maintenance is it was 65, if I'm reading that correctly, %. So this is what the picture looks like, I guess, financially. I think, Bruce, you're kind of alluding to what does the road look like? It's like how is it described? Is that?
Well, yeah. So what's an example? We drive on the roads every day.
Yeah.
I look out my window at 30-year-old road, and I go, well, that should be a candidate for some sort of repair work, renewal. And I don't think that it really scores very poorly on this scale. So those of us not fluent in the terms of art here about these RSR values, can we put a street to what does Scotland Road score? What does, give us an example of what we're going to get to in the end.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
again, Bruce, I think what you're saying, and I'm kind of thinking the same thing, is if a 70 is acceptable and that's our average, why do we need to do it in the first place? If that's a pretty good score where we don't need to worry about the roads at 70.
I think, Scott, I'm not going to steal John's thunder here, but I think what we've heard in the past is if we don't catch up on the spending, more roads are going to they're going to slip into the major rehabilitation.
Our number declines.
Than we're bailing them out.
Our average declines over time. Yeah,
exactly. So a 70, you still have to continue maintaining it, whether it's probably a chip seal candidate, which is just a thin overlay, acts as a wearing course essentially, and it buys time, and it may get you another 5 years out of that road at a high level, at a high rating. Whereas if you don't put any dollars into it, it's going to start to fall into that poor category, poor rating, where you're spending a lot more. So as an example, Scotland Road, I'm looking at the report. It's an RSR of 58. So Scotland Road, we're paving this month. Scotland Avenue, that's in much worse condition, and that's a full reconstruction project. That's down in the 40s, I think. So a road, I don't know. So a road of get you an example of a 70, say.
Well, we'll pull up Bruce's road. What road do you want again, just to know what the rating is? What road?
Dairy Hill.
Dairy Hill. What's the rating on Dairy Hill?
Probably 90.
And Scotland Avenue is a good example. We held off on paving that because we knew we were going through this broader roadway improvement project. So that's in the 40s because we kind of, for 3 years, we've been kind of going through this grant applications and stuff like that. So this just gotten worse and worse.
So Dairy Hill is an 80, well, so this is a little bit skewed. So the older section of Dairy Hill is a 68, and the newer section from where the road was extended is a 95. The
Right, 'cause it's
overall,
brand new.
it's kind of it's not a good example because it's half the road is down in the 68, 68 range. The other half is a 95, roughly. So it has an overall rating of 83.
But my larger point is that as we talk about funding this, it's taking us from a certain percentage of roads that look like Scotland and make them look like Green Hill, or take roads that look like Warpus and make them look like
Opening
Railroad.
Hill. Yeah.
I think I think that's important as we talk about the need to do all of this, because I think we do need to do it. It's just how do we phase in the funding? And that gets me back to the original question: is what does that graph look like? And while it's less painful in the short term financially, does it become more painful in the long term because it doesn't really get us over the top of that preventative maintenance and routine maintenance hump that we need to get over?
I mean, we can ask, well, I don't know if we can do that, right? We gotta figure out, I think that it's really.
We have
what-
the report. I thought the report like exists where we can just look up roads and
No, we can, but he's asking that if we spend what we did, we're recommending, because assuming we didn't want to write a $5 million check next year, we said, okay, how do we phase in some of this getting ahead of it? And so we took it out over time. So that means that in theory, costs are going up, right, every year. And then the ones in the red are staying in the red longer. And we might lose a few roads from minor to major. I don't know, so there's gonna be shifting in these color boxes. So it's probably means we're not gonna get to the 75 that they're targeting, but I would say it's still gonna be better than where we are now. But I don't know if can we get them to run that with different funding analysis at this stage? Is that something that they're still would be able to do for us as a consultant?
Yeah, we can do that. We can
Okay.
run different scenarios on
Okay.
this.
Okay, so I think then that would probably be the best case. I've made the assumption that we don't want to do a $5 million appropriation for this next year. So that's why we're trying to do it, but we'll come back with a more detailed analysis. I think we do need to, once we settle on this, then we'll decide then we'll probably need to move forward with the 750, knowing that's a piece of this plan over the next 5 years that, where our board would vote on it this year, because that was kind of in this fiscal year. And the goal here still has been to keep the funding levels because this is all part of the Madison investment plan, right? To keep the funding levels that are going into CIP consistent and not have, because originally I think when they proposed this to us, didn't they recommend $2 million a year in annual funding?
Yes. So
Yeah.
originally it was really more of a straight line from,
Yeah.
the red circle to the green circle. And what I recall is that the final RSR was similar.
Yeah, so that did do it over time, and then
Yeah.
we asked them to look at, because that's a huge budget increase, so we said, what if we were to make some capital infusions in? And then they came back with this scenario here, with the $5 million. So, okay, so, but it sounds like we want to do something still, right? So we'll have them run the scenario based on the financial plan that the staff is proposing that kind of works with the Madison investment plan, and then come back with a kind of final recommendation. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Great. All right, thanks, John.
Thanks.
So I think you're sharing that. So yeah, okay. So go back to my next slide, which is back to this. You see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, the next thing is, upcoming projects that we've kind of had conversations about, and one that would need to be accelerated. One is Neck River, the solar panels. And this is not, this is kind of more associated with the school project, but now, we need to decide how we want to pay for this. And do we want to insert it into CIP? My thought was we put it into CIP as a formal project, but then figure out the funding. I think Bruce, you'd suggested talking to the Board of Finance. Is this better to pay with out of fund balance because of the timing of it? There is the money that's available in the Neck River school budget as well. That's already, through the bonding process. And a couple things I was thinking about this. I wonder if this is reimbursable, which I never asked that question, if this would qualify as like a partial reimbursement on this. So,
So quick thing, or maybe Peter, I think is on here. We talked
oh,
this
great.
morning.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It is reimbursable. And actually, I had a nice conversation with Graham today. Their plan from the building committee is to just give all the money back to the town, and then we're going to run it through our end, Ben and I, and as a SIP project. So we really need to get something started in the SIP to put that in if this is something that we really want to move forward with, so that we can get this process rolling.
Okay. So, there'll be a little bit of time to figure out what pool of money we want to pull it from, but I think if we keep it under the umbrella of the school as a school SIP project under the new school, it'd probably be the most efficient, right? And then that way it can be part of that reimbursement process. Because I think there's still a lot of question marks about how we want to pay for it, but it sounded like that all board members want us to move forward on this, right? Because this is kind of like you have to get it done and you got to get moving now on it.
Yeah, there's an awful lot that goes along with this too. I mean, the applications to the state to get this thing for reimbursement, the planning for it. So I mean, it's a coming up on a very, very short timeline to get this done.
So my plan was to have them do this, submit it, and it would be part of, October 15th is when I submit the capital plan, the final capital plan to the CIP committee. I would have this as part of that. And I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. It's not committing us to it, right? But it's now adopted into the plan. And if we end up getting some hiccups on funding or whatever and can't move forward, at least it's been approved as a CIP project.
Do you want that in the town plan, or do you want that in the Board of Ed side?
I would do it under the Board of Ed. I think we would need to have it under Board of
Okay.
Ed because of the reimbursement. I don't know if that
Yeah,
matters.
and you
but
want
I think
that.
it'd
You
have
want
to
that
be.
in the 5-year cycle too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be nice to see the payback on the panels.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The payback, what is the expected break even recovery for the funds, net of reimbursement, of course. So not on the full cost of the project, but whatever the final out of pocket for us is.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think that
5
we
years,
could,
10 years, 50 years?
Yeah, I think there's been some studies. I have to go look back on that, but a building is supposedly, if we were to get the panels and the number of panels on there, it would net zero the building out. So if we're averaging, and so far right now we're gonna find out this year exactly what we spent on electricity. But it's anticipated that the electrical power shouldn't be more than $170,000 a year. The project being roughly 1.7 to 2, it's a 10-year payback or 11-year payback.
So I think that has a place in the conversation.
yeah. Yeah, and I think
Oh,
we
yeah,
can do
100%.
that in a more like refined way. We can put some more details on that. Now that assuming reimbursement and all that.
We're still saying summer of 2026. So I mean, that's the hard part is, so is it in CIP or are we dropping it in?
So,
It's
no,
not yet.
it has to be summer 2026, because the other piece that we didn't talk about is the reimbursement. So the 2.1 is the gross, but we're also, when I say reimbursement, there's the school, I guess I was thinking state reimbursement, because it's part of the construction project, and I don't know if it's eligible for that, but you're saying it might be. And then there's also the tax credits that could be as much as 30%, just like we did for geothermal.
Yeah,
So,
we're not going to tie it to the school project though. But it's still reimbursable. Adding solar panels to a school is a reimbursable project with the
Okay.
state.
So the actual cost would be, whatever that reimbursement rate is from the state. And there would also be a tax credit back, which comes in the form of a cash payment to municipalities for maybe 30% of the project. It might be less. We have to get some more information on that, and this is all has to be done because unfortunately they got rid of all this in the last big beautiful bill. So all of these programs are going away. And solar is one that you have to have it commissioned, right, by 2026, like construction completed.
I have to double check on that, but I think you can actually get into the point where you can go to, and as long as you're in the project, you can get it reimbursed.
Okay, so, but it has to be
Committed
started.
to the project, yeah.
Yeah, committed to the project. So those are the reason this kind of jumps ahead. And they were willing to do this out of the school budget, right? But as we saw last time, because the cost of Ryerson is so much higher now than expected, the demolition, they don't have the funding to do it in the school budget. So the Ryerson demolition is going to be eating up more money. So I think this is where it gets into, which is it better to take Ryerson, which we're like, maybe a year away from demolishing, and focus on this and just keeping it chugging along with the school bonding money, and then handle Ryerson outside of that process? Or do we, because I know people said we voted on, $1.2 million of funding for Ryerson demolition. So it just gets into cash flow. What pocket of money do you want to get to do this? But this has to be paid for and funded, immediately for us to move forward with this.
Right.
So,
Peggy, and that gets to my comments that if we identify the projects that we think are the top operating imperatives, I think that Stacy and the Board of Finance can figure out the most
Right way to pay
the
for it, right.
optimal way to arrange for the funding on it. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time debating
Agreed.
about where the money's really going to come from.
but you're good, all good as a priority. So there's support for this to make that a priority.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think
So-
this one makes
I think
sense.
I guess I'm just calling a process foul though, to some extent, like, and I'm not meaning to point fingers at anybody, so please don't take it that way, but we've known about this project for 3 years and this has been a thing. Why isn't it in CIP now? Or maybe it is, and I'm saying something stupid, but
I think I could speak a little bit to that. It was always, they were using that backup money as they were unsure of what money they would actually have left over. And there was a debate of whether or not they were going to actually commit this to the or have enough money to do the Ryerson demolition.
context of their
and
actual
also
budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were using this as just in case we have some other issue that comes up in the school project that would require that funding. So they were kind of putting it on the back burner, having it as a nice to have, but nobody could really commit to how much money we were actually going to have. Those numbers are starting to dial in very close right now. As part of the building project, now they know that they have this certain amount of money that's going to be coming back, which is really close to that number. And now we can effectively start to move forward with some of these projects.
Well,
Totally get it, but even in the context of CIP, like, I feel like I just remember being on the board, like, shouldn't we be putting placeholders for these types of situations, right? So at least we're sort of planning for it.
Well, it was part of the school project, and Neck River is in CIP. So this was one of the, things that they wanted to do at Neck River. So we didn't take like the HVAC and put that separately in the CIP. We just saw Neck River as one project. But I also want to highlight that as the discussion unfolded on this, and we thought if we don't have enough money in the Neck River budget, which we do have it to do it, there was no rush. We could wait a year or two or three, right? We could go through the CIP process and maybe pull it forward a few years. But now, because they've gotten rid of all the incentives, we could still wait. We just have to pay full cost. The only reason we're saying we should be doing this now is because, and jump ahead of everything, is because we lose all the incentives, the federal incentives to do it. That's changed, and that just changed a couple months ago with the legislation that was passed. So I think those circumstances, both, this was originally part of the Neck River project. And then secondly, we have to do it much more quickly than we were expecting to do it because of the change in legislation. So we'll submit this as a project. It'll be under the schools, and then figure out, it'll be offset with some sort of funding mechanism. So it won't blow the whole capital plan, but and then we'll get some details, Bruce, on the payback and all that. We'll put a little packet together on it.
And to be fair, I think we should just, ballpark what we expect the reimbursements to be, because that would serve to shorten up the payback period.
Yeah.
I'll get working on that tomorrow and start taking a deeper dive. Basically, we're gonna just we'll assign this out and start really getting the nose to the grindstone on this one.
Okay, so the next is the one we just had the presentation done, the Middle Beach Road project. It's been in CIP, but we didn't have a number for it because we had just funded the study. And I guess the question is, do we want to put this in year 5? Do we want to, and I think it is a great grant candidate, but I know there was some discussion about that somehow this should be pulled forward. So we have 800, we have like roughly half the project funded through the coastal resiliency funds that are in there now. It basically eat up all the funds in that account. But so that's the next question, I guess, is how big of a priority should this be? Should it jump ahead? I'll give you my opinion, and then you can let me know. I think we put this in as any normal project, but we as a year 5, because it's a completed. Now we have a full number, but I think the goal would be to apply for grants for this, and that we could maybe pull it forward if a grant comes along. Like, we should definitely have it in the 5-year capital plan.
I like that approach a lot, actually.
But I guess it's a question of, this is a recurring problem and it's getting worse every year. So do we feel it's more important to,
But it sounds like it could be a year 1 or year 2 if we get the grants. So
yeah,
kind of doesn't matter. Like, just get on the list.
Get it on the list, get it endorsed, and then, we could always pull it forward later if we feel like it's evolving, and then we'd have to, appropriate or something, or pull back on something else if we're going to move it forward. Thoughts from other board members?
I think it should go on the list. Yeah.
I think that's fine. I mean, I think we heard a pretty compelling argument that this is the way to go. So, we put it on the list. We chase as many grants as we can get, and then it comes back to us and we move it up or down the priority list as is our prerogative during the year.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, pretty straightforward. So strong field. This is we had it as a upcoming project last year. It was not in year 5. I've kept it hanging outside of this process because we started the Surf Club master planning process, and I felt like this could be something we could bundle with other improvements that we're making if we're gonna bond for it, or do we want to just treat it like any other turf or field project and keep it in the 5-year plan? Then we'd have to pull it forward to year 5.
What's the remaining useful life of the field?
It is kind of at that point now. I think it's 20 years old, I think, is from what I recall. We don't have staff here I don't think Austin's on. I didn't ask him to come, but you know, it needs to be replaced. It's not urgent though. There's no safety issues from what I understand. This is more being proactive, knowing that this is coming.
Yeah, I would like to know Austin and maybe even Terry, the athletic trainer at the high school, their perspectives on if there are any safety issues or concerns with the turf, because if if we're already going to be bonding for surf club, if there is an opportunity to to blend that into that project, then that seems like it would make sense to me. Um, but I would definitely want their opinions before.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, looking at the list that we have in front of us, I just think, like, if you compare it to Middle Beach Road drainage or even solar, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem at the level of priority if there isn't any safety issues currently.
Yeah, I think this is Austin knowing that there's a useful life in these fields. Look, we had the one in Polson, right, that lasted twice as long, but at the same point, we don't want to let things get to that point again, right? So, okay, so I'll try to get some more information from him, but when I'd spoken to him, I'll just double check, but my thought was kind of leave it hanging out there. It's in the future plan, right? And then we'll keep an eye on it as we get through this planning process. I just wanted to highlight the Scotland Avenue project. We're going to be applying for lots of funding now. So we had actually had already had a connectivity grant, and we learned that we think the balance of the project could actually qualify for LOTSUP because it's a mixture of roadway improvements, drainage, and sidewalks, and so LOTSUP will cover things. So that's something that I think we had that on our kind of list of where we had matching for grants, Stacy, right? So that would come off. That will be coming to you as a vote to, I think, apply, right, for LOTSA, but that's good news. So that saves some money in our capital plan. That whole project hopefully will be completely paid for by grants. So with outside funds. And then I just mentioned the Green Hill Sidewalk Road project because we're waiting for the design. We haven't approved whether or not we're moving forward with it, but if we did do that, the hope would be it would be all LOTSUP funded, but I just wanted to mention that as it's technically kind of in there, right, in CIP, because it was that study, I think we had it listed for that area. So I'm just flagging that that will be another conversation later. And it won't have any funding impact because it'll be paid for by other sources, but at one point we may be adopting the actual plan into the study if the boards are happy with the new design and stuff. So okay. So the next page is more new projects, and these were ones, and I know Peter's still on, hopefully, because we could talk about some of this, but one of them is the parking lot at town campus. It's never been in the CIP list, and it's bad, and it's one of those every year we go, we got to repave this, and then we don't really, and we really should have had this in a while ago, more of a plan for this. So the staff we talked about, easing us and trying to do in chunks, where we do sections. And so they came up with kind of a plan over 3 years that would total about $524,000. So I think that
You
section.
advance the slide, Peggy, but there's nothing changed on our screen.
Sorry. I'm reading it from my. Why isn't that going forward? There we go. Sorry. So this is jumping ahead of year 5. I think this is one of those where if we just put it into CIP in year 5, you know, it's going to be in really bad shape by the time we get to it. And so I think we're doing this like year 3, or is it 2, 3, and 4 in CIP, where we're doing chunks of it. And John, I know you're on, you know, just from a professional view, the parking lot. You know, what do you think in terms of like, what category would that fall in? Is there, we don't have a rating on it, right? Because that wasn't really part of the roads, but.
No, it's pretty bad in terms of the cracks. It's not what you would call like alligator crack, where it looks like a jigsaw puzzle everywhere and it's just coming apart. It's not doing that yet, but it's definitely something that should be overlaid, probably milled and overlaid at least at a minimum.
John, are we talking about the lower lot or which parking lot are we talking about?
We're talking about the entire area. So we would start with what we're calling the Arts Barn parking area, which is down the lower section, which really is a mixture of pavement and packed gravel. We'd move, that would be the first phase. We'd move out from there, and then we do the second phase, which would be up by the police, in between the police department and the town hall. And then we would go the third phase, which would be around into which would be the other entrance, or would be the south entrance of the town hall. So in between Board of Ed and police station second, and then town hall and main entrance, which is the south entrance facing the town gym, would be the third.
And you said
And
this is CIP already? It's in the
No,
plan?
it was not, it was never put into CIP. It's just never had any, it's one of these that's just always been. And we've talked about it before. It was always like, you know, and we talked about trying to just squeeze in out of leftover paving money or something, right? Maybe start chipping away at it. But then I think this year we decided to put it as a project. So it is kind of, like I said, we put it in to start it sooner than 5 years, and to phase it.
And it is in 1, 2, and 3, Peggy.
Oh, it's 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So, obviously protocol is typically, although we don't always follow it, year 5, we could put it in year 5. It's just, it's pretty bad, especially the employee parking lot is really bad.
Mhm.
So, that's, I guess the question is there support to do it sooner? Or let the CIP committee make that decision. Maybe they'll.
I think let them make it this. That's why we have a CIP committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely something that needs to be done. So we can let them if they want to push it all out, but I think it should be in the plan now. The other project that came up, and I'll let Peter talk to this a little bit, is the town campus gym. These were newer projects. He had actually wanted to pull them forward. I put everything into year 5 planning dollars because these are new. I don't know. Peter, are you still on?
Yep. So
Okay.
yeah, some of the town campus maintenance projects are there was the roof replacement, exterior replacement. We want to stay on top of the outside of the building so that we don't have any water intrusion, and some electrical upgrades, as well as interior upgrades as well for HVAC and so on. But that's way down the road. But these are all projects to, basically keeping the envelope secure and weather tight. They're at the end of their usable life, so that we want to make sure that we get these things before we have a problem with them. We've stretched it as long as we can at this point.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot to put HVAC on there because that was the biggest chunk of this, right?
That was like $1.1 million. Yeah, that was add additional new HVAC and additional AC in the gym.
And I think that 2.9 is not the actual cost. Because you had those, that
was a total of everything.
But was that planning dollars or was that the cost of the projects?
No, that was everything. That's roof, siding, HVAC, everything.
Okay.
And can I ask, the exterior replacement, does that include the exterior doors or just the sidings?
No, that's everything.
Okay. And then I do have one other question regarding town campus. I don't know if this has been taken into consideration anywhere, but by the baseball field, there's that timber style fence
Yeah.
that is deteriorating and really becoming a safety concern.
Austin's actually, that falls under his, and was getting quotes about what to do.
Okay.
Because I drive by it every day and I'm like, why is this still not being repaired?
I'm
So
like, can't we just take a chainsaw and cut these down or kick them? They might fall down.
I know I haven't gotten back from him. I think it was something he was maybe going to be doing through actually his planned cycle maintenance, but I haven't heard back but he's on it. So
Okay.
there'll
All
be
right.
some update on that soon
Okay, great.
and well needed.
Yes.
I think all three of these projects that you've got here look fantastic, and I like that you're putting them in year 5. So to me, these are things that our CIP committee needs to wrestle with, and this is great that we're dropping it into the process where they should be dropped.
Yeah, and I know that was something that Katie really advocated for. Gene Fitzgerald really advocated for is that, the departments really think on what projects and when they're going to need to be done so that they can be dropped into year 5 and everything be planned for as best we can. Of course, there's things that pop up unexpected, but I agree, Scott, that's what we have the CIP for. They can kind of look at the big plan and how everything meshes together.
Prioritize, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, so I
Okay.
think these are like Cottage Road, we've had they've been very active, that neighborhood, but the road is very narrow. There's been a lot of development on it. The intersection is bad. We're adding
Mhm.
sidewalks now on Route 1 there. So I think it's due to have a look at and how we can make it better. And then the intersection at we have those new developments going up. That's actually a state road, but we should be accounting for some improvements that we would be doing on New Road, and how to improve that whole thing. So we're gonna work with the state on that, but we'll have to figure it out. But that's a looming issue as those developments get ramped up, and we have new housing and that medical building there. So
And can I ask a question about New Road? Are we going to get striping on New Road? That section that was
Right.
freshly paved?
Yes.
Just because at nighttime, because it's not well lit there and you don't have the fog lines on either side of the road, it it if you have an astigmatism and everything is blurry, you probably can't see the edge of the roadway well at night.
yeah, I
Just
think
saying, as
John
somebody
can
who,
respond to that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so this board approved no, I take that back. It did not need to go to the board, but we are hiring Safety Marking Inc. to come out and do pavement markings in town, including New Road. So it'll be this fall,
okay, great,
before the weather gets too cold.
awesome.
So
Nice.
that'll be good. So that's kind of it on new projects. And then I just put this up here, which I think is not for today, but just to highlight, there's the CIP process, the funding process for CIP, but then we've got all these other things that we can look into with the Board of Finance about how to pay for some of this stuff, right? Including the grants, if we end up, say, moving forward with, a project at Jeffrey, it's not all expected to be funded through CIP. We would potentially be able to allocate some of these grants, possibly. We've got the $5 million sitting there from Academy that has not been used yet. And we can, bond council said that we could repurpose that with town meeting approval. We've got the tax credit money that's going to be coming back for Neck River, hopefully by the end of the year. And the Eversource rebates. And then, I just highlighted that we have the fund balance with about $8 million is kind of the amount that's unassigned, that the board felt comfortable using for these types of things. And then I just put on their proceeds from selected vacant town holdings. So maybe if we end up selling something out of the facilities process or whatever, there could be some proceeds coming into that. So just to say that this isn't all going to be budget busting. We've got all these different buckets of money that we can talk about trying to fund some of these things. So that was kind of it. I know that you might have some specifics or projects updates. I just opened it up to conversation then of, Stacy's got her big financial spreadsheet. If people have, specific questions.
I
Well,
guess not.
this isn't a specific question, but it is for Stacy. With the projects that we are talking about introducing into the mix, I would be interested to know how that impacts the capacity of the the MIP to process those. Is it safely within the limits that we've set, or have we busted the bank yet again? And then also, I'd like to see sort of I guess maybe in the style of a 5-year cash flow, sort of the money's out and the money's in, because you do have a bunch of moving funding sources here that, so we might be required to spend money today, but then we're going to see it come back to us in year 2 or something like that. Would be interesting to see that 5-year cash flow statement.
Looks like you want to be on the Board of Finance, Bruce. See ya.
No, I just want to, it's hard. There are so many moving parts, as Peggy has been talking about, there's a lot of new stuff, but then there are offsetting funding sources. And the only really easy way or good way of looking at that is in the form of, or at least to my way of thinking, in the form of cash flow. And it gives us a sense that if we're overloading the system, then we've got to give some direction about what we think is a must do and needs to be at the top of the list, and what we can afford to push off. So I think it's part of our priority setting.
Yeah, so I can say, I mean, the few items that we talked about, I think my plan is to offset with additional revenue sources. And then as far as the cash flows, I think those are those summary sheets on each of the fund where you could see money in, money out with the balances. I think that's what you're referring to. So I can certainly provide that to you. We're still working on pulling it all together, especially now with the changes tonight. And then working within the MIP. I think it will be a challenge, but we're going to try to pull it all together and see, what kinds of decisions we're going to need to make once we go to the committee and then to the boards.
And I think that we'll send out, as I usually do, a draft of the letter with the backup for that. So you guys can kind of look at it all, how it pulls together. And we'll try to get that. I think the letter is kind of due the 15th, right? I mean, we'll see how we come pulling this all together next week, right? And the committee doesn't meet until, so it's kind of a month before the committee. So maybe we'll, but anyways, we'll send something out. I'd rather send something out and have you guys have time to look at it. And then if you're, making some comments, and then I think if we can get the final out towards the end of October, and that gives the committee some more, they're not even going to look at this until the end of November, right? So, but we'll get something in advance so you can see the letter and then the numbers, the draft report. Does that make sense?
All right.
Yeah, and I could send the summaries as soon as we pull it together. It just won't be the entire document. And yeah, we do start later this year because it is an election year. So we're going to try to get all of our new members on there before we start, and then it'll be a mad rush to get all our meetings in after that.
And then one other thing, I know today we received Alex Providence's letter of resignation as the Board of Selectmen CIP liaison, since he's no longer full-time here. So we'll need to select a new CIP liaison. I know one person months and months ago had submitted an application for that. That was Janet Nicolini. So I'm not sure if that's something that's still on file or if interested parties, if they've already submitted, should resubmit.
So, I think that, so all of the terms of the CIP people end in November anyway, right? So all three.
I think they
boards-
did, yeah.
So, so I think what we could do is just put out a, I mean, Janet's already applied, but we could put out that all three boards will be, seeking representatives on, public members so that everybody knows that all the slots are going to be open.
Mhm.
And then we can make a decision in November who the Board of Selectmen would appoint. So that would be
Sure.
fine. And we already
Okay.
have her application, obviously, so we would hold on to that. And then if other people wanted to apply, and
Yeah.
then Board of Ed and Board of Finance would also need to get new members.
Correct.
So the new boards would then have to pick pretty quickly the public members. So, but yes.
Just maybe we probably just need to remind Board of Finance and Board of Ed that they need to do that.
Yeah, the problem is you have to do it after the new board, I'm guessing, right? Or maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Well, I think that, if they could be prepared in one of their first meetings to make those because that's usually they do their liaison appointments too and all that stuff. So they could.
Yeah, just so it's on their
On the
radar at
radar, I
least.
think, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a good point. Because it does sneak up, and I think sometimes we're a little late getting a public member on, so. Okay. All right, well, with that then, we'll get something out to you in the next week or so with the updated plan. Okay,
Awesome.
Sounds good.
all right, thanks, guys.
Guys,
All right.
Have a
See
good
ya.
one. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Stacy and John and Peter. Thanks.